right, so let's get into some melanin skin.
Okay.
Okay, so some of the differences between melanin skin. So you know, I work really closely with Darlene and Mattia, who own LI, Black women, and we created the Queen line a few years ago, and we started really talking about the differences between dark skin versus light skin, and in particular, black skin, right? Darlene really wanted to do a series of pigments specifically formulated for Black women, Black clients. So that's where your line's going to be different, where Queen is for Black skin, like fits, you know, 5 and 6s, maybe, you know, your line is going to be for all ethnic groups, all skin types that fall into that melanin-rich skin type, like Middle Eastern women, Asian women, every all-inclusive. Doesn't matter ethnic background. Yours is just going to be a little bit more diverse. More diverse.
Yes. So more diverse and a little bit broader.
And a little bit broader, which I think is going to be a really great complement to the Queen line.
I agree.
So when I first started doing permanent makeup, like 22 years ago, I think my third client was a Black woman, right? Because I was in a salon. I was in a salon, a 10,000 square foot salon, renting a room, and it was a diverse salon. There was white, Asian, Black hairdressers, and I was friends with them all. And so they were all, that's
how it should be, Tim.
That's how it should be, right? And so it was just, there was about 30 hairdressers. This is a very big salon. And so, and I was just friends or friendly with all the hairdressers. And so I was putting my brows and eyeliner on all of the hairdressers, so their for free, so their clients could see my work on them. So I did a gal named Coco, and she was a hairdresser at the salon I worked at, and she was like the third client I ever did. And I remember it really totally freaked me out because I had been doing, I had done like a couple of light-skinned ladies, and I could see the color. I could see the color. There was contrast of color. I lay Coco down, and I have to use a dark color on dark skin. She was probably a Fitz 5, if not a Fitz 5.5. So really dark. And of course, I'm using a dark color. So dark color in dark skin, there was no contrast to me. I remember I couldn't see it. I couldn't tell if I was in my design, out of my design. And it really freaked me out. And I'm like, oh God, Coco, please, I'm just like praying to God, please let this heal okay. And it did. But because you don't really see dark color oxidize as contrasting in dark skin as you do with the lighter skin types, I started kind of outlining my brow design, so which kept me within my design. So that was really helpful. But in my very first ombre brow I ever did was on a Black client. My first year. I mean, there was no such thing as ombre brows back then. So I called it a transition brow. I called it a transition brow. But
they're calling it all kinds of stuff today.
All kinds of stuff today, yeah. But so what I'm just trying to get at is my entire career, I have been tattooing on Caucasian women, Black women, Asian women, Middle Eastern women. My entire 22 years, my clientele has been extremely diverse, and I didn't realize that there were no other Black artists, and artists were not seeing Black clientele. And so I started touring the United States and teaching and lecturing all over the United States. So that surprised me. I thought there were Black artists throughout the US doing this work. There were no Black artists. And I thought everybody that was a permanent makeup artist were working on Black women, Asian women,
Yes, yes.
and that was not true.
No, there's still today so many myths. It's gotten a lot better, but I mean, I mean, you proved them wrong, of course, because it helped that you were a tattoo artist.
Yeah.
But I remember even when I started back in 2018, they would be like, you can't do that on that skin type, or that dark, she's too dark. Don't do that on her skin type. Like, and this is simply not true.
It is not
it's
true.
It's just simply that you don't know how to do it.
That's exactly right. So that's when I put together my color theory course. And in my color theory course, I have a brown to black section. I talk about black skin because no one understood black skin. I was getting beautiful results on all my Black clients right up until I met Darlene and Mattia. But then once I started working with Darlene and Mattia at LI, them being Black women, that I really got a really wonderful education and insight on the skin itself and why this, why that, why I was experiencing this. I had already worked out through those issues, but I didn't necessarily know why those challenges existed until I met Darlene and Mattia, and they really, really educated me on dark skin. So one of the differences is that melanin-rich skin, dark skin, tends to be more oilier.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So do you want to go into that a little bit deeper?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Do you want to go into that a little bit deeper?
We could definitely go into that. So, melanin skin produces a greater amount of sebum oils,
right?
Than lighter skin tones, which actually can encourage pigment migration.
Yes.
So that's a huge difference. So I feel like a lot of times that's why like a hybrid or organic ink works a lot better, because it has carbon and it's a lot easier to implant into the skin. Also, melanin skin tends to be a lot thicker. At times. So you might not be able to use the same technique that you would use on a fits 1 or fits 2. And I preach this all the time, especially when I'm getting DMs of like hypopigmentation and things of that nature. And if the audience doesn't know what hypopigmentation is, that's when the skin turns white around it. So usually with tattooing, it's very temporary because it's caused by trauma. But you can simply avoid that by maybe using something that's a little faster, maybe a medium taper, not a long taper, and just using a bigger needle helps a ton because it's implanting into the skin with a lot more ease.
Yeah. I think, my experience on some of my Black clients is, that some of them are oilier, thicker skin, more textured skin.
Yes.
And so for that skin type, I don't think the single needle is a good choice, because especially if you're getting into those small diameters, right?
I usually use a 7 mag.
I use
the curved mag because it's a little bit softer.
Yeah.
I will go in, like maybe for pictures with a 1RL or maybe like a 3RL 0.18 and kind of stipple it just to give it a little bit more texture just for the picture, which takes me about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But other than that, I do tend to use like a mag on most occasions, and that's because things have happened to me that we usually don't talk about, like and I'm even still kind of scared to talk about, which I talk about in my presentations. Oh, and by the way, we will be in Vegas, me and Taryn. We will be both presenting in Vegas. I cannot believe I'm
the Vegas PMU conference in October. Yes.
The Vegas PMU conference. Where I will be showing some case studies of how hyperpigmentation, sometimes that single needle or not using the proper ink has made it worse. And sometimes it can lead to permanent and not temporary all the time. Luckily for me, it was temporary and only lasted like 6 to 12 weeks. My clients are so nice because they let me tattoo them again. But again, you learn from that, and I'm not going to just say like, oh, that was the client's fault or whatever. I want to know why that happened. So you know what I did, Jen? I took it to my dermatologist. I took the picture to my dermatologist. I was like, can you please tell me what's happening here?
Because it's scary.
It's scary, right? And ever since I was at SBCP, and I've done a couple of webinars on just like this particular topic, people are starting to come out. Oh, like, oh my God, that happened to me. I didn't know why. And I asked the trainer, and they said, oh, I did something wrong. And it's not that you did something wrong, but sometimes certain needles can overwork the skin, and it will cause a little bit of trauma.
Yeah, and I think what some people don't consider is if you have let's just talk about the tip of the needle. The very tippity tip of the needle, right? If you're using a single needle and it's a long, medium or long taper.
It's like a stiletto.
Yes, and it's of a lower diameter size, like a 0.20, 0.20, 0.18. Some of them are getting into 0.18. I don't get why anyone would need that small of a diameter needle. But imagine how frail and the tip of that needle is. And so if they're using...
Especially if you're flickering
and you're on thicker skin that is more textured, you're going to dull the tip of that needle, maybe bend it. Maybe you might bend it a little bit. And you're gonna wear down that tip, and then that can end up causing more trauma. So if you're taking a single needle to those skin types, and you don't want to upgrade to a bigger needle, you want to stay with a single needle, then it would behoove you to change out that needle. Like you can't
to a 0.30 or a 0.35 at least.
Yeah, and maybe even use two different needles during the procedure. Maybe like halfway through, change out that needle and put in a brand new needle to make sure that tip stays nice and sharp. That's what tattooers do. Body tattooers, if they're in,
I do it all the time.
Yeah, but I do it
all the time. Melanin-rich skin, it's more prone to an inflammatory reaction. So, I do it all the time. I'll test the tail with a few needles, and if those needles are not working, I'm gonna go get another one.
Right.
There's sometimes I have 5 needles on my tray because a few of them that what I thought would work didn't work. And you know what? I'm here to tell you that that's okay.
Right.
Because it's better to not cause a bunch of scar tissue on the client's skin, and then I have to go back to those healed results. If that needle's not gliding across the skin properly, you're probably not going to have good healed results.
Yeah.
So and I get shit for it all the time, but it's okay.
No, it's okay.
I've done thousands of clients. And you learn. I wouldn't even call them errors. I would just call them like a learning curve.
Lessons.
Yeah, they're lessons or whatever. So it makes you better. It makes you a better artist. If something is not happening the way that it's supposed to, change up your tray.
Right.
Something needs to change.
Something needs to change. Yeah.
Something needs to change.
Yeah, especially if it's happening consistently, right? Because I think even the best artists can choose be choosing the right pigments, the right needle, executing great technique, and every now and then the result can be like, that's not quite what I expected. It can happen to any of us. But if it's happening consistently and all the time, then yeah, I agree with you. There's something in your formula that's not working. You have not found your secret sauce yet, and you need to start playing either with your technique, your needle, your pigment, your depth. You know, something needs to be adjusted in the way that
no, totally. And then the other thing that I see a lot on melanin rich skin, and it's not with everybody, but I see it a lot, is a lot of times when they do show healed work, you can only see the outline more. You could see the outline a lot, but then the inside is so muted.
Yeah, I don't like that look.
Yeah, and I don't like that look. And that's another reason why I want to come out with my own pigment line. And I'm so happy that it's with LI, because it's gonna be made by melanin, two melanin queens for other melanin people.
Yeah. And Blanca,
not that that always makes a difference, but it's made for us by us.
Yeah, and one of their formulators is Hispanic. She has dark skin, but she's Hispanic. Yeah, Blanca. So
and I do a ton of Hispanics, and even them, they have so much red in their skin. So
well, wait till you start working with them. You're gonna fall in love with the ladies at LI. You really are.
Yes.
You are. They're so.
But you can't put the same thing on everybody. So even sometimes using the darkest color is not even the proper way to think about it. People are these days are very against modification.
Yeah.
I see it all over Instagram. Don't modify, blah blah blah. I think more people do it now with like the yellow and the orange now. But I mean, it's okay to modify your.
Yeah, sometimes you need to
over modify to change the color or the density or the tone of the ink.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, if you're gonna use like the darkest brown on like a high fixed client, you might want to add a little orangish red to it.
100%.
Because their skin has so much blue tones and cool tones to it.
Right. Yeah.
So, and then I find that my brows come back even on the darkest client, and they still look so brown.
Yeah, mine do too. And I use